We got such a great amount of questions coming in from the chat, so we're going to continue on and answer a few more of those before we jump into the demo, and I'll be able to show some of the things that we're answering as part of the questions within the platform itself. I believe my team behind the scenes is going to drop a link into chat for us in a moment here that will be part of the demo. We want you to be able to see live the things that I'm doing and be able to experience the software release on your side of the screen as well. So definitely click that link. It's a web application that we use for running simulations and showing off LaunchDarkly. So click that, and we'll jump into some questions real quick before we get over to that demo and show it off. So picking back up where I left off, again, I'm looking down at the questions here, so you don't think I'm distracted. What can I do to encourage developers to use LaunchDarkly? I think it's for developer teams, it's really about doing the thing. It's about getting hands-on with the product, seeing how much it shortens development time, how much it accelerates, like the flexibility of that. We run a set of workshop programs that are going to be spinning up very soon. My team runs those called Talk and Ship, and the sales teams as well run their own. I definitely think that that's a great way to get developers interested in it, because it lets them get hands-on and start to build and release software on their side. So I would definitely recommend something like that. Reach out to us anytime. We'd love to help answer that more for you and get into that. But I think getting hands-on for a developer team is probably the best way to encourage them to keep using it. Question came in for us. Have you leveraged LaunchDarkly to run a successful rollout release of a big feature? Definitely have. We've seen people roll out hundreds of features. We evaluate over 20 trillion flags a day inside of the platform, so there are people rolling out features constantly. That's a bit of a softball question, but definitely people roll out everything from entire database changes, moving over to new regions, new capabilities, rolling out new mobile device capabilities, rolling out entire UI changes inside of an application. It really, the gamut runs pretty far for big features there. Another question was, how is it useful for any education organization or students for training, teaching, and learning purposes? I love this question because I find that it's one thing for us to come on and show you all of the amazing capabilities of the platform, but there's an entirely different side of this that is about learning how to develop and how to build software. And I think that the idea of feature flagging and managing features in this way is such a core component of development that the value of learning something like LaunchDarkly is going to be that you accelerate that learning. And now you're taking it and putting it in context of a platform that lets you manage that globally. But the practice of feature flagging is something you're going to pick up along the way. And it's going to become one of those core parts of your developer toolkit. And so I think I would highly encourage any students to jump into the platform and start learning how to build software in this way, because it really is going to change the way that you develop software for the better. And it's going to show you ways to short circuit some of the complexities of rolling out. As we get into the demo, I want you to think about what this looks like to do inside of an environment without feature flags. And I think the answer to how students for training should approach this will become pretty clear pretty fast. How to grow? Another question was, how can I grow as a newbie DevOps enthusiast in this vast IT universe? This one I look at more of as an advice question. Get hands-on. I think that getting hands-on, using these tools, trying out ideas, find the workshop programs, right? Aside from LaunchDarkly, find any workshop program that you can get into to get hands-on with it. Find context that you want to solve. When I learned to code, it was all about finding good context around the things that I wanted to build. And once I had that, it was much easier to adopt it. Find things that you'll use often. That way you continue to practice and grow in that way. How do you handle licensing and access when you need QA engineers to be able to test or disable in lower environments, and then someone different to manage it, enabling or disabling inside of staging and prod? LaunchDarkly has a really comprehensive custom roles model around it. From a licensing standpoint, you're generally licensed by seats. So as you add users to the platform, you pay as you grow inside of that space. But from there, you can wrap these users that are coming in custom roles and give them access to these different environments and isolate them out from things you don't want them to access, but still enable them to control things that you do. And so you can give your QA team access to those different, in the lower environments, QA testing environments, while you keep things like releasing into production isolated maybe to your change desk team or your SRE team, who maybe handles your actual outbound requests. So I think there's a lot of flexibility there in custom roles and controlling how that runs inside of the platform. Checking through here, see if there's any other good ones. There's a question about updates on Accelerate, which is one of the new products that we are developing. Keep an ear out for that. There'll be more in the future on that one. Let's see. I think we got all of these, and we're probably ready to jump into an actual demo now. Yeah, I think we're good. We've handled the vast majority of them. There's a few more that we don't have solid content for now, but I think we can go ahead and jump into the demo and let you guys see this hands-on. So again, I'm going to share screen in just a moment here, and what I would suggest is definitely hit that link that I shared with our team, assuming that it went out to everybody. I'm just checking real quick to make sure that it actually did. Yep, there it is. I see it in the session chat. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the demo now, and we'll start exploring. So on the screen now, you'll see Toggle Outfitters. Toggle Outfitters is a e-commerce store that my team uses to show off the functionality of LaunchDarkly. And really what the framing is around this is Toggle Outfitters is modernizing the way that they're releasing software. And as a part of that, they're adopting LaunchDarkly to help drive everything from risk-free releases to migrations to personalizing experiences, experimentation, and getting out into mobile. So for this summit, we really wanted to focus on the core concepts of software releases. So things like testing in production, being able to immediately enable or disable functionality, being able to automate these processes and scale them out to teams inside of your organization, enabling teams to go faster together, right? So we're going to jump in and take a look at an overall product tour, and I'm going to start fairly ground floor just so that nobody gets lost. So at the ground floor, we have the feature flag dashboard. These are all the features that you create, and these let you manage individual capabilities within your application, whether it's that database migration or an actual feature inside of here, or I'm sorry, whether it's a migration or a UI change feature. That's what I meant to say there. So if you take a look at the application, you'll see I turned it off. It went back to basic, to the basic Launchpad version where it's launching soon. But just as fast as I turn that off, I can turn it back on, and we can see that change roll out instantly inside of the platform. Regardless of where you're at in the globe, you're hitting a local point of presence for us that is helping translate that change down to your system extremely fast. So we're able to evaluate these in less than 200 milliseconds. And this core concept here is what starts to set the foundation for that like risk-free release concept. Without adding on any other capabilities into this, if there was a problem with that landing page, all I have to do is come in and instantly disable it here, and it turns that off across the environment. Companies like Vodafone use this to make it so they can release features over 350 times a month, right? So they're able to quickly iterate, quickly ship new capabilities, and turn on and off the ones that are broken as they see fit. And they also do that through the capability of managing the blast radius of a change. What I found when I was shipping software is that it's not always immediately apparent when there's a problem inside of a platform. And so for something like a migration to a new billing API, so something like somebody's adopting Stripe as an example, you might not immediately see the problem because the page loads fine. In this case, I've isolated this change down to my dev and test users. So as you're looking at getting started with software releases, it becomes so important to figure out what your target groups are that you want to roll out these changes to. In this case, I've created a dev testers segment that is a grouping of users that is targeted to members of my team. So this feature flag is configured with that targeting rule, and it says, I'm only going to roll out the new Stripe checkout to my dev testers. This lets me test these changes in production, right? I've already rolled out the store, but this migration, I want to treat a little bit more sensitive. And so I'm targeting only my dev testers. Right now, regular users hit this and they come in, they get a form for ordering. But when I come in and log into the system, spelling my name correctly, we'll just leave the password blank for now. We can see a subtle change on the top. I get a cart now. I get the individual cards that now have add to cart option on here. And when I click on this, we can see there's a problem. But because I've limited that blast radius down, I've controlled who's actually receiving this change. It's only me and my team. all of you aren't seeing this unless you logged in with my hyper complex Cody and no password, which maybe you are, in which case you're like me too. With that error message up on the screen, I can instantly come in here and disable that functionality for all users, and we're back to normal. So talking about that risk-free releases concept, being able to immediately turn off a feature, but even when it is turned on, control who's receiving it. And if those users are impacted, being able to disable it for them specifically really takes the risk out of it. And these are things that as you get into LaunchDarkly, you're going to do every single day. Being able to turn features on for individual groups, target who you want to, expand that targeting out, right? So say I was happy with this change, right? If I turned it back on, I save the change. I could come in here and continue rolling this out to different segments that have been created. This is a good moment for us to jump over and take a look at that segments menu and see how it's configured. So jumping over to segments, you see I have a few different ones that I use as part of this demo, as part of this walkthrough. In the case of my dev testers one, you can see I have two different variations of my ID in there. Again, this is a very basic configuration that I've done on my side just for my ID. These use data that comes in from your LaunchDarkly context. A context is a set of properties that tie to the users who are using your application that you can do things like targeting off of. You build this out when you set it up. This context allows companies like Hulu, as an example, to be able to target off of devices and roll out specific functionality to only certain streaming devices. It's a great example of being able to use different segments and say, hey, all of my V1 hardware is in this segment. I want to target only that V1 hardware with this new change. And so these companies are able to release changes globally to millions of devices at a time without a user ever even logging in, just by simply understanding the context of the request. So the takeaway there is being able to take the context of a user's request, build a segment around that group, and do your targeting of a feature based off of that. So in this case, like I said, we've built this out here. I could come in and look at other context types that are available, right? I've built out a few different things inside of here. So I could do something like, we'll back out and we'll go look at a location one so you can see a better difference there. North America, I'm grabbing different country codes, which is strange because UK shouldn't be in there. So that's a little off. Someone's playing with targeting rules in a different way. But you can see we're grabbing a different property there. We're grabbing a context kind of location. So part of that context has location that we're adding in. So again, segments, really important capability that you'll want to use as you roll out changes inside of an environment, especially when you want to start expanding out. You can do targeting without a segment if you wanted to, right? So we can do individual targets if we want to. That's definitely a possibility. I just find that segments are a little bit cleaner because they let us create these larger groupings. Moving up one level, you see this prerequisites option here. It would make sense that since in my example, we rolled out a new version of the change, right? Like we turned on the store, made it available for users, that we would want to say, I only can roll out this new purchasing option if that one's turned on. So prerequisites allow us to create a dependency between different feature releases. So when you want to be able to manage risk, being able to say, hey, I can only turn this on when this other feature is turned on is a core capability of that. Being able to come in here and say, I only want this on if the release of Toggle Outfitter storefront is also enabled. This again creates that dependency and makes sure that you're only releasing the features you want to when you're ready for it. So we'll save that change, built that out. These look good and close that error message out. Now, another thing to call out here is these two features on top are both front-end feature flags, but one of the most powerful capabilities of LaunchDarkly is the ability to create a consistent experience across any of the platforms you're using. So in the case of these, this third feature here is actually a backend feature flag that's controlling the actual APIs that are being connected to. The other two are UI-based changes, but this one is actually in a completely separate platform, managing via our Node.js SDK, our JavaScript SDK. This lets us create a consistent experience across all of these environments from one single pane. So in this case, I can come in and turn this on, which enables that new functionality behind the scenes to update our APIs. Right, so we'll turn this on for all users. We can watch this update in a moment here. Just got to log out. Refresh the page. In a few moments, that'll finish loading back up. I talked about showing off workflows and the idea of how we gradually roll out a change into an environment and creating those repeatable building blocks around our changes. Being able to build these workflows and create them and share them out inside of our organization is a way to create standardization. So in this case, when I come into this change and I want to roll this out, I have an existing one down here that I started to create previously where I start rolling out to a specific region. This is one that I had created. I could save this as a template to reuse again in other examples. I can also use the workflow engine to create new workflows off of things like a progressive rollout, right? So this one is one of my favorites to use because you can actually define out the percentages you want to gradually roll out under. So in this case, I can do 10% a day to turn this on for all of my users. And you can see it automatically scaffolds this out. I can name this up here, 10% rollout per day. Just save that there, 10% rollout per day. And that's available now to use, again, globally. I see a couple of questions pop up in here. I want to just take a quick look and make sure that we're answering these correctly. Just taking a look. Looks like we're keeping up pretty well. Take a quick look at the chat, make sure that we're keeping up nicely here too. Awesome. So at this point, we moved through several different capabilities in here around releasing features, rolling them out into an environment. A couple of other things that are worth calling out are flag insights. That was one of the questions that came through. When you want to be able to measure the consumption of a feature and how it's being used inside of an environment, flag insights let you see that. These can all be exported using our data export capability. I mentioned this inside of the chat that we would come back to. I can come in here and I can see all of the evaluations that are being used. So using the example of Hulu that I talked about before, if we had different variations or different versions of a feature flag that could be released, I could see all of the different evaluations on a per hardware type here. That gives us the ability to very quickly tell what sort of adoption we're getting. Are the V3 devices starting to come online and starting to use our new capabilities? Are those being released to them quickly? I mentioned context previously. This is the context view, and these are effectively all of the users who have come into an environment or devices, right? A context is really a thing consuming a LaunchDarkly functionality. So in this case, we'll go ahead and click on one of these device ones, and we can see this is a device-specific one for our React SDK. This is not a mobile device, and it's a Mac OS device. So these are properties that are available for me to target off of. This device came in and it evaluated all of these feature flags as true, right? So these are all, or not as true, sorry, as these values here. I could change these independently. I can also go ahead and up level this one level and see all of the other feature flags that have been consumed inside of the environment. So it's loading. We give it just a few moments here to finish. There we go. So now we can see the entire content of this context that we can then roll out. This is an anonymous user. They never logged into the platform, but all of these properties are available. We can add those properties, again, into segments and release them alongside features. So hopefully this has given you a view of how you can release software using LaunchDarkly faster. Again, I talked about companies like Vodafone, Hulu, so on and so forth, who use LaunchDarkly to release in this way. As we move on to the next session, it's going to be a great one. Up next is, DataSite and BOK Financial with our product marketing team and the director of product marketing, Aliyah Abed. Thank you.